Dutch East Indies, also known as Indonesia today. The Dutch East Indies is an archipelago consisting of 17,000 islands, 8,844 of which have been named. These islands are located in Southeast Asia. The Dutch East Indies before imperialism. Before imperialism, the Dutch East Indies were fought over by the Dutch, the French, the British, and powerful Indonesian sultans. They fought over control of Indonesia's trade routes and crops. The Dutch East Indies Company, also known as Verenigde Oostindische Compagnie. They were established in 1602 to kick the British out of Indonesia and establish trade routes for the Dutch in Indonesia. They were dissolved in 1800 because they were corrupt. The Dutch lose territory in the Indonesian archipelago. After the Dutch East Indies Company was dissolved in 1800, the French took over during the Napoleonic Wars. They then sold the Indonesian land to the British, and the Dutch were kicked out. Pangeran Diponegoro was an Indonesian prince who believed that he was the rightful king of Java. Supposedly, the Ocean Queen came to him in his dreams and told him that he should rule Java and that he should kick the Dutch out. Causes of the Java War. Pangeran Diponegoro started the Java War because he thought that he was the rightful king of Java. He was also very pissed at the Dutch because they paved over a sacred burial ground that belonged to his family. The Java War started in 1825 and ended in 1830. It was between the Dutch and Pangeran Diponegoro and his followers. Most of his followers were following him because of religious purposes. In 1830, Pangeran Diponegoro was captured by the Dutch, and the Dutch regained control of Java. The effects of the Java War. The effects of the Java War had a terrible toll on the Javanese. Over 2 million Javanese were killed from direct or indirect causes. Many of them starved, got pneumonia and died, or were killed by Dutch soldiers. The cultivation system was started in 1830 by the Dutch after they had won the Java War. In this cultivation system, the Javanese farmers would take their crops, sell them, and give 1/4 of the money to the Dutch. The Netherlands Trading Company was established in 1824. For 6 years, they didn't do very much until the cultivation system was established in 1830. Afterwards, they bought all the crops the Javanese farmers produced and sold them for more money.
The cultivation system made the Dutch very rich from all the crops the Indonesian farmers were giving as taxes. 1/3 to 1/4 of the entire amount of revenue the Dutch collected was from these taxes. But, in turn, the Indonesians experienced famine, economic hardship, and corruption. Edward Douwes Dekker was a former Dutch East Indies government official. He wrote a book under the pen name Multatuli called Max Havelaar, which was about a man named Max Havelaar going against the corrupt Dutch government. This book spoke up against the hardships the Indonesians face and out against the corrupt Dutch government. The liberal period started in 1870 when the Liberal Party had a majority control over the Dutch government. These liberals believed in free markets, so the Dutch East Indies was now open to private businesses instead of government control over the Indonesian exports and crops. This in turn made the Dutch even richer. Causes of the Aceh War. As the Dutch expanded their spheres of influence and control over the archipelago, they met some resistance in Aceh, which was ruled by the Aceh Sultanate. The Dutch wanted Aceh because it was rich with natural resources that they could use. The Aceh War lasted from 1873 to 1914. The Dutch used several different military tactics against the Aceh, but the Dutch had little victories over the Aceh guerrilla fighters. Effects of the Aceh War. The Aceh War was really costly for the Dutch, almost making the Dutch bankrupt at times. Finally, in 1914, the Dutch took somewhat control over Aceh, but Aceh guerrilla forces still fought on with the Dutch. The ethical policy was put in place by the Dutch Queen Wilhelmina in 1901 and lasted until 1942. The Dutch Queen was trying to improve the lives of her colonial subjects through irrigation, migration, and education. The policy, however, didn't do much because of a lack of funding. Effects on the Dutch. Overall, colonization on the Indonesian archipelago had a positive effect on the Dutch. The Dutch made lots of money, which enabled it to be a European economic power, and the colony was the envy of everybody else. Effects on the Indonesians. The overall effects on the Indonesians wasn't as good as the Dutch. The Indonesians experienced government corruption, heavy taxes, and lots of death due to wars, and lots of other effects that didn't help Indonesia become a nation on its own and more reliant on the Dutch. Indonesia today. Indonesia today is its own country. The Dutch had finally given up control over the archipelago after World War II in 1963. They now have a good economy and still consider such writers as Multatuli as an important figure in their modern literature.